From last-minute turnarounds to incredible displays of skill and resilience, we are counting down the moments that truly defined what it means to be an underdog in the world of the UFC. These are the top 10 biggest upsets in UFC history. Number 10, Chris Weidman versus Anderson Silva. Going into the fight against Anderson Silva, Weidman was unbeaten, yeah, but honestly, not many people thought he'd stand a chance. I mean, Silva already had the record that he still holds to this date for the longest reigning championship in MMA history. He also was already being hailed as one of the greatest and defended the belt 10 times in a row, finishing 8 out of his 10 opponents. But everything good or bad has to come to an end. In the first round, Weidman did pretty well. He kept Silva on the ground and landed a decent amount of ground and pound, but then in the second round, things started to look a bit dicey for him. Silva kept the fight standing, and it seemed like he was getting into his groove, getting the best of Weidman on the feet and defending his takedowns attempts. But Silva got so comfortable that he started to clown and taunt Weidman in a, let's say, silly way. And in one of those silly moments, Weidman lands a left hook right on the button that knocks out Anderson Silva, putting an end to his legendary reign as a champion. Play stupid games and win stupid prizes applies perfectly here. Number 9, Shawn Strickland versus Israel Adesanya. At UFC 293, we saw once again a real shakeup in the middleweight division. Israel Adesanya, which many considered the one to take over Anderson Silva's status and records as a champion in the division, faced an unexpected and game-changing defeat at the hands of Shawn Strickland. Entering the fight, Strickland was seen as a considerable underdog, with odds stacked against him at plus 450. Yet, he delivered a performance that was both surprising and decisive, clinching a unanimous decision victory over Adesanya with a score of 49-46 across the board, leaving no room for controversy. The fight had a dramatic start with Strickland dropping Adesanya in the first round with a solid right hand. He followed up to finish, and honestly, for some it looked like the fight could have been stopped right there. But the ref let it continue, giving Adesanya a chance to turn things around. However, Adesanya just could not crack Strickland's game plan. Strickland stuck to a simple but effective strategy, using his Philly shell defense and landing 1-2 punch combos. It kind of looks like he stole that stance from iCarly. What do you guys think? Number 8, Gabriel Gonzaga versus Mirko Cro Cop. Mirko Cro Cop's arrival in the UFC back in 2006 was a big deal. He came in as the Pride FC open-weight champion and was seen as one of the best strikers around, a truly intimidating fighter. The expectation was that he had steamroll through the UFC heavyweight division, especially since at that time, the UFC was still playing catch-up with the talent pool of Japanese MMA promotions like Pride FC. Cro Cop's move to the UFC was seen as a major shift in the landscape. His fight against Gabriel Gonzaga was supposed to be a mere stepping stone, a warm-up to launch him into title contention. Everyone thought Cro Cop would dominate, but Gonzaga was not going to let that happen. He knocked out Cro Cop with a head kick, which was ironic and shocking because that was Cro Cop's signature move. That knockout is still talked about as one of the most violent in MMA history. Number 7, Conor McGregor versus Nate Diaz. When Conor McGregor was at the peak of his fame in mixed martial arts, he encountered Nate Diaz in what turned out to be a classic underdog story. Diaz was not even McGregor's original opponent. He stepped in as a last-minute replacement for Rafael dos Anjos. The general expectation was that McGregor would notch up another win to his impressive record. However, Diaz had a different plan in mind. In the first round, he absorbed McGregor's best shots, showcasing his toughness and resilience. In the middle of the second round, McGregor's cardio started to fade, and Diaz struck back, landing punches and Stockton slaps that turned McGregor into a wrestler.
Oh, you're a wrestler. You're a wrestler.
Capitalizing on this shift in momentum, Diaz locked in a rear-naked choke, forcing McGregor to give up, and at the same time, he set up a rematch that would make him millions. Hey, but before we continue, slap that like and subscribe buttons like Nate Diaz slapped Conor McGregor's cardio out of him. Also hit the notifications bell so you stay up to date. Number 6, Michael Bisping versus Luke Rockhold 2. Luke Rockhold and Michael Bisping's first fight back in 2014 was a big deal in the middleweight division, and it did not go well for Bisping at all. Rockhold dominated, knocking him down with a head kick and then finishing him off with a one-armed guillotine choke in just 2 rounds. So, When the rematch was set for less than 2 years later, the odds were heavily stacked against Bisping. Rockhold was now the UFC middleweight champion, and Bisping was stepping in on short notice to replace Chris Weidman. It looked like an easy defense for Rockhold, who appeared supremely confident, dismissive, and underestimating the Count's big time. But Bisping, who was not exactly known for knocking people out, completely changed his game plan. Rockhold came in too relaxed, hands low and with his chin higher than Snoop Dogg at one of his concerts. In the other hand, Bisping was all in. He landed a couple of left hooks that totally blindsided Rockhold, knocking him out and snagging the championship in a stunning turn of events. Not only was this an upset for the ages, but it also marked the end of Rockhold's time as a top-level fighter, as he won just one more fight before retiring in 2022. In my opinion, he had everything to become one of the greatest of all time, but his ego was biggest enemy. Number 5, BJ Penn versus Matt Hughes. Heading into the title fight against BJ Penn, Matt Hughes was already a household name in the MMA world, renowned as one of the most dominant welterweights in the sport's history. Penn, although considered a promising talent, was not widely believed to have what it takes to dethrone Hughes. However, the fight turned out to be a classic showcase of skill and determination, quickly becoming one of the most memorable bouts in welterweight history. Penn surprised everyone by taking control early on. He managed to take Hughes's back, a pivotal moment that shifted the momentum in his favor. Penn then capitalized on this advantage, securing a rear-naked choke that ultimately finished Hughes. Everyone was shocked and in complete disbelief, especially Matt Hughes, that after he got choked out, he looked like a disoriented lost puppy. Number 4, Cain Velasquez versus Fabricio Werdum. Cain Velasquez was at the top of his game as the UFC heavyweight champion, and not many saw Fabricio Werdum as a real threat to his title at UFC 188. The event in Mexico was significant, celebrating Velasquez as the first Mexican-American champion in UFC history, and expectations were high for his performance. However, he underestimated a big key factor: Mexico City's 7,349 feet above sea level elevation. As you already know, the higher the altitude, the less oxygen to breathe. You see, Fabricio Werdum did his homework and got 2 months prior to the bout to acclimate to a such lower quantity of oxygen. On the other hand, Cain Velasquez did most of his training camp in San Jose, California at sea level. He got to Mexico City just 2 weeks before the fight, which was not enough time for him to acclimate properly. Fight day came, and Cain started with his usual style: a lot of pressure, high volume of punches, clinch, and a lot of wrestling, nothing unusual. But you see, to be able to keep that pace, cardio plays a very important role, which Cain was known to have for days. Well, by the second round, he found out that his cardio had no value in Mexico City. He started slowing down, which Fabricio took full advantage of. In the middle of the third round, Cain shot for a takedown, but in the process exposed his neck to a Brazilian jiu-jitsu master. Fabricio did not hesitate on taking it, choking him out and upsetting not only Cain Velasquez, but the whole city of Mexico. Number 3, Ronda Rousey versus Holm. Ronda Rousey was, without question, a dominant force in women's MMA and a true trailblazer in the UFC. Holding the record for the most title defenses with 6, she was seemingly invincible during her prime. Then came Holm, a newcomer to the MMA scene but a seasoned boxing champion. Despite Holm's striking prowess on paper, Rousey was considered the superior MMA fighter. Rousey's fighting style inside the cage was characterized by aggression and violence. Leading up to her bout with Holm, she boasted a 12-fight-winning streak, with 11 of those victories coming in the first round. It was widely believed that Rousey's experience and grappling skills would overpower Holm. However, what many overlooked was Rousey's lack of experience against elite-level strikers. The fight took place in front of a staggering 90,000 people, but despite the immense pressure, Holm managed to withstand Rousey's initial onslaught. She successfully fended off takedown attempts and landed solid punches. Then, a minute into the second round, Holm delivered a devastating head kick that knocked Rousey out cold, sending shockwaves around the world. Rousey's comeback attempt against Amanda Nunes at UFC 207 ended in a quick and brutal defeat by TKO in just 48 seconds. It was clear that Rousey was surpassed by the evolution of women's MMA. Perhaps she was too arrogant and disrespectful to some of her opponents in her glory days, and karma got it good. Number 2. Serra versus Georges St. Pierre. No one gave Matt Serra much of a chance heading into his title fight against GSP. This was mostly due to the fact that Serra did not climb the ranks the usual way. Instead, he got his golden ticket by winning the welterweight division on The Ultimate Fighter, Season 4. The show was a marketing gimmick devised by the UFC's marketing team to give lower-ranked fighters some exposure, and the winners would earn a title shot against the current champions in their weight divisions. Serra ended up winning the welterweight division, setting up the stage for his title shot against St. Pierre. GSP, at that point, was already being hailed as one of the best in the game. So when Serra lined up against him at UFC 69, the expectations were not exactly in his favor. But, defying all odds, Serra caught GSP with a clean shot early in their fight. He scored a TKO victory and grabbed the welterweight title, shocking just about everyone. Number 1! Juliana Pena versus Amanda Nunes. The MMA world has seen its share of stunning upsets, but Juliana Pena's victory over Amanda Nunes stands out as possibly the biggest of them all. Sure, Matt Serra defeating Georges St. Pierre was massive, but at the time, GSP was just beginning his journey to becoming a legend. Nunes, however, was already at the pinnacle of her career when she faced Pena. Coming into the fight, Nunes was the undisputed female GOAT in MMA, defending her bantamweight title for the 6th time, and not having tasted defeat since 2014. She had demolished some of the greatest fighters around, including Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate, Chris Cyborg, and Holly Holm, and seemed virtually unbeatable. Pena, on the other hand, seemed like an unlikely challenger. Her record was spotty since 2017, with only 2 wins out of 4 fights. Frankly, it looked like she got the title shot because there was no one else left for Nunes to face. Expectations for Pena were not just low, they were almost non-existent. However, after a difficult start to the fight, Pena quickly began to thrive, particularly when it became clear that she was more durable than she had been given credit for. Pena started landing solid punches in the second round. For the first time in years, Nunes appeared vulnerable. Still, nobody really expected Pena to land a takedown and from there secure a rear-naked choke for the tap-out. When the fight was over, it was almost hard to compute quite what had happened. Such was the size of this upset and will probably never be topped. Which one of these moments shocked you the most? Leave a comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe. But that's all for today. See you next time. Till then, remember to protect yourself at all times.